Welcome back, everyone. Now that we have our laser engraving software installed properly, we can access our engraving master file. Now, if you need to review that, please review the installation video. So once we open this, I have my laser engraver off, and we're going to see a dialog that's going to warn us of that. So saying, I cannot find the dongle or the USB that's being plugged into my machine, and the software is going to go into a demo state because of that. This is because our laser engraver acts as a CD key for this program. So if I hit OK, you'll see that that is going to be shown here. Now for this video, we're going to keep it in demo version, but keep in mind that you need the laser engraver plugged in and on so that you can save documents. To show you something, so let's say I do a save. You can see that those are blocked out, so I can't even do it. So when you're building programs, make sure, or files for your clients, make sure that the laser engraver is on. Now, let's go through the different parts of this program, and then we can show a little bit of the differences. So on this top bar, we have our standard file, edit, draw, modify. We also have new, open, save, cut, copy, paste. And then you have undo, redo, or if you please, Control Z, Control Shift Z. And then you have your combine, uncombine, group, ungroup. Now these are going to be helpful if you're creating objects by scratch or new shapes within the program. You can do anything that you would like in this program. Sometimes it's more easy to develop this in a third-party program such as Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw. There's many other programs that are available as well. But if you don't have those or don't want to learn those, you can do them in here as well. It's just going to be a different learning curve for that. Finally, we have hatch, which is if we're going to make an object, you'll see that it just makes a line. If I have it selected, you can see that the H is now highlighted. And so I like that it's an H for hatch because it's going to make a bunch of lines in it. So when you hit that, it's going to give us this dialog box. So we have a lot of choices here. And so we can enable it, all calculate, so it's going to calculate the lines and how it's going to engrave them. Follow edge once, means it's going to follow the outside of it. And then crosshatch is going to go 90 degrees of whatever number you choose here. And then we can choose the number for the pen, and the pens are the settings that are being used to do the engraving. So you can see from our previous video, our pens are over here on the top right, and those pens are color coordinated so that you can reference them back here. So let's say we have a yellow gold. So in this case, it's going to be blue. And then I can choose, it's going to do the hatch twice, but let's just do it once for this. And then my spacing is going to be 0.1 away. I prefer 0.01 so that my hatch is really tight and it yields a very clean result. But you can decide which one works best for you for time and so forth. So then we can, if we like that, or we can go into hatch 2 and we can do a separate hatch, or third if we want to. Usually I reserve the second hatch for cleaning, which in our case is 11 is the cleaning pen, and so I keep it that way. So I'm going to say 45 just so that it matches the same angle that we had over here, and that way you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to hit OK, and you can see that it's filled up with blue. So then the color that it's going to show up here is going to be whatever happens last. So as I select it, I can change those settings here on the bottom left. And so let's say I changed it to, let's say my cleaning, for the sake of this demonstration, my cleaning was number 12. you can see that now that's pink. And so whatever happens last on your hatches is the color that's going to be showing up. So sometimes it doesn't look like a clean box depending on the size. So if I come over here, I can zoom in, and sometimes it looks like this, or it looks like patterned, but sometimes that's just how it represents the lines. Once we zoom in a little bit, we can see that those lines are actually perfectly spaced apart from one another, and they're cross-hatching, which means they're going back and forth. Now on this bottom left, if I were to uncheck that and hit apply, because nothing will happen until we hit apply. And I have to undo it for this one too. Now you can see that they're only going 45 degrees. So depending on how you want to do things, you have the flexibility to do anything in here. And again, the count is how many times you want that action to happen. So let's zoom out. So we can do that over here. So we have a bunch of zoom tools. So we have this one, which is zoom window. So I can create a window and it will zoom into that. We have zoom pan, so we can move our perspective. And then we have plus and minus. So we're going to do minus. Zooms us out. Zoom all, meaning zoom into all the objects that we have in our object list. So let's say I had a second box over here. You can see I'm zoomed out now. If I hit zoom all, it's going to fit both into there. And then zoom pick. So again, if I'm clicking on only one, then I can zoom into just that one, or zoom into just this one. And then view workspace, it's going to zoom out to our entire workspace. So these can be very helpful as you're developing shapes and other objects in your workspace. Now finally, the major panel that you're going to be working with is this one right here. So depending on what you're creating, if you want to pick, you'll see that there's quite a few new buttons that show up. So we can do, just highlight it, so we have a select all. So select all of it. We have, and again, you can do everything else. So let me go like this and go select just this one. You can select others, so you can select the one that you don't want to select and hit that button, and it'll select everything else that you haven't. You can delete the object with just a button, or you can hit the delete button on your keyboard. You can lock it into place so that you can keep yourself from accidentally messing it up or moving it. Now this is one of my favorite buttons when I'm working. You can see that if I were to try and put this in the center, I could do my best, but it's not going to be very good. So this button here is put to origin, which is dead center. So this little X is the center of this object, and I said put to origin, which is in the center of my workspace. Now let's say we needed to flip this object. Well, let me make a more complicated object. So if I needed to flip the object, I can click this and I can flip it on the y-axis or the x-axis. So mirror on the y, and then we can hide or show. So I'm going to show that or hide it. So we can see it here, and we can see which ones are visible or which ones are closed on our objects list. And then you have your different shape tools here. So this one's for curvy tools. This one's for just a square, a circle, an ellipse. So it's going to allow you to make a circle, but in any dimension that you want. polygon tool. So you can choose the number of sides below here. This is your properties panel of the given object that you're working with. So let's say I wanted 9. Oh, I guess I should hit apply. 9. Again, nothing happens unless you hit apply. And now you can see that shape was now transformed into a 9-sided shape. Next, we have our font. So let's delete all of these. So I'm going to highlight all of them and delete. Then I can go into font, and then I can go into here, center it like put to origin, like we said before. We also have our position. So if we need a specific position, we can do it in millimeters here. And we know the exact size of this text in millimeters here. So if we have a specific size that we need, we can change those specifically. So let's say we needed the text to be exactly 10 millimeters. You'll notice that this number changed as well. And that's because we had this checkbox, or this lock. So it's going to lock the size of the Y to be in the same ratio to your X. So if I hit apply, you can see that. Now let's say we didn't have this checked. If I make this double size, you can see that we stretched it out. And sometimes that's what you want. Then we can access any font down below. So any font that's been saved onto your computer is accessible through here. So let me back up. So where it says font, true type, for most of the things that we're going to be dealing with, if we're dealing with a standard font, it's going to be true type. So any true type font that's saved onto your computer, it will show up here. So let's say I wanted something really curvy. I could go onto a font provider, pay for it, or if there's a free version, then you can do that and save it on here. So let's see if there's something extra fun. Well, that's intense. Let's do that. And let's do, this sounds regal, so let's do king and queen. And you'll notice that it's not updating here because we need to hit apply for it to show up. And you can see that it's not going to restore back because we have it stretched out. So let's say I want to get that back. Let's try and go into 60, see if that makes it better. A little bit less. Let's try 30. There we go. That feels a little bit better. Now we can zoom in so we can see a little bit better. Now, one of the reasons why I chose this is because this is really, really hard to read, especially since it's a bunch of outlines. So sometimes in our design, it makes more sense to just engrave the outlines, and sometimes it's better to do hatch. So if I hatch that, you can now see our object a lot cleaner. And sometimes the font is getting messed up here and it might not hatch properly. So always check, see if this font's going to work. Sometimes it'll mess with the program. Now if I go back into here, maybe we can see if that makes it better, and it doesn't. So there might be a break in the font right here that's causing it to think that this is a closed object. So if that ever happens, then we can just choose a different font. And let's do this, just a basic font. And now you can see that it's hatching appropriately. So I have noticed some of the free fonts, sometimes they have a broken line, and that will cause this to hatch incorrectly if that's what you want in your design. All right, so finally, we're going to get to the more fun stuff. So if we want to do bitmaps, this is your JPEGs, this is your PNGs. Those are the file types of bitmaps. So we're going to click on this. Let's say we want to introduce this picture. So if it comes in like this, if we're going to be engraving, we're going to want, and we can go into more depth in our photo engraving, but dither is for, it's going to get whatever the pixels are closest to black and closest to white. So if I hit OK, you'll see that it's going to go more like this. And even though it looks like this in the program, it's going to look a lot better when it's engraved than the software represents it as. And we'll go through these other parts in a different video. Now, all right, now finally, vectors. Vectors are very cool, and we can access them here. So draw a vector file, and let's say we have a company logo that we're going to be working on. Sometimes it imports really big, then we need to go into our properties panel, which is down here again. And while having this lock checked, I'm going to make that 20 millimeters and then hit apply. Now it's bringing it down. Now, if our company logo that was imported, it's going to just do the outline, so we need to hatch that. So we're just going to use those defaults, and now we have that fully hatched out and it looks gorgeous. And we can do multiple examples. Same deal, I'm going to make that 20 millimeters, hit apply, and then let me just bring that over. And now I can hatch that, same settings. And the cool thing about vectors, right, is they can go as big or small infinitely and be sharp. All right. And then you have barcodes. So let's say that you want to do a specific barcode. Again, going into our properties down here, we can do any barcode that you can think of and beyond. Most of us are going to be using QR codes. So let's say we wanted to go www.sunstone, if I can spell that right, sunstonewelders.com. And we're going to say, yeah, sure, we like that. So now if I hatch that, just so that if you guys want to test this out, you can scan that code and it's going to take you to the website. And so if you have custom charms that you're making, mugs, ring business, anything, you can put a QR code on the mug somewhere, and then they can scan that later and then get back to you without it looking overly tacky by having a long email address like this on it. Finally, we have our pens, and it's going to be detailed here. So we have our platinum all the way down until we get to these cut sections. So one thing to keep in mind, and we're going to explain this probably in another video, I would look over the nameplate video that will explain how to do this a little bit better. So you'll have a cut, and the cut doesn't matter what metal you're cutting, it's going to be the same for all the metals because we're trying to remove material, not engrave it. So all of these other are to engrave on these respective metals. Now that we've done a quick overview of this program, now go to the next videos, try some of these applications out, and I'll see you in the next video. If you have more questions, please reach out to us.